So today we're looking at adding and subtracting fractions. Now this is fractions with different denominators, so the number on the bottom is different. First of all, we're just going to look at what the lowest common multiples are. Remember, the lowest common multiples is the smallest number that two numbers go into. Okay, so for example, if we're looking at 3 and 4, the smallest number that 3 and 4 can go into is 12. For 5 and 6, the smallest number that's in both of the timetables, if you think of it like that, the smallest number that 5 and 6 go into is 30. For 4 and 6 is 12, because 4 times 3 is 12 and 6 times 2 is 12. For 3 and 8 it's 24, because 3 times 8 is 24 and 8 times 3 is 24. For 5 and 10 is actually 10, because if you think about it, 5 times 2 is 10, but also 10 times 1 is 10, so that is 10 is the lowest common multiple for 5 and 10. We're just going to look at these fractions here. So what we do to find the missing numbers, look at what we multiply the 5 by on the bottom to get the 15, and that's 3. So whatever we do to the bottom we do to the top. So 6 times 3 is 2 times 3 is 6. Now for the second one, look at it. 8 times what equals 40? 8 times 5 equals 40. So whatever we do to the bottom we do to the top. So we're going to times that by 5. And 3 times 5 is 15. For the bottom one, again 5 times what is 25? 5 times 5 is 25. And for the bottom we times it by 5 as well. So just a review on adding and subtracting fractions with the same denominator. So if we've got 2 sevenths plus 3 sevenths, that equals to 5 sevenths. We just add the top numbers, we don't add the bottom numbers, it just stays the same. For the next one, so we've got 2 ninths plus 4 ninths, so the 2 plus 4 is 6, and we just leave it as over 9. For the last one is a subtraction one, so we've got 5 elevenths minus 3 elevenths, and that becomes 2 elevenths. So this is one of the ones where we've got a different denominator. Here we've got a 5, here we've got a 10. So we've got to find the lowest number that 5 and 10 both go into, and that number is 10. So we're going to make the bottom number of each of those fractions 10. Now 1's already okay, the 3/10 is already okay, but we're going to change the first fraction. So what we do is we look at the 5 and we go, what do I do to the 5 to get to 10? I times it by 2. So whatever I do to the bottom number, I also do to the top number, or the numerator. So we're going to times that by 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Now we can take those two fractions and add them together and say 4/10 plus 3/10 equals 7/10. Let's look at another example. So this one, we're looking at 3 and 12. What's the smallest number that 3 and 12 go into? And that number is 12, because 3 times 4 is 12 and 12 times 1 is 12. Now one of them's already 12, so we're going to leave it as it is, and that's the 5/12. However, we're going to change that third into twelfths. So we look at it and say, right, 3 times what equals 12, and that's times by 4. So whatever we do to that bottom number we do to the top number, and 1 times 4 is 4. So if I've got 4/12 plus 5/12, I end up with 9/12. So this one here, we've got 5 and 6, and we think about what's the smallest number that 5 and 6 go into. And the smallest number that 5 and 6 go into is 30. So we're going to change both of these ones to get 30. Alright, so let's deal with the first one. So 5 times what equals 30? 5 times 6 is 30, so we're also going to multiply the 2 by 6 as well. And 2 times 6 is 12. Then we look at the second fraction and we go 6 times what equals 30? 6 times 5 is 30, so we're going to multiply the numerator by the same number. And 3 times 5 is 15. So we've got 12 over 30 plus 15 over 30. Just add the top numbers together to get 27 over 30. And the last one we're going to do is looking at a subtraction one. So we're going to look at 8 and 3. What's the smallest number that 8 and 3 can go into? That number would be 24. So we're going to change both of them to 24. So 8 times what equals 24? 8 times 3 is 24. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the numerator. So 7 times 3 is 21. And for this one here, 3 times what equals 24? 3 times 8 is 24. Whatever we do to the denominator, we do to the numerator. So 2 times 8 is 16. And then we just subtract those numbers. So 21 minus 16 is 5. And the bottom just says is 24.